The first sign was subtle, a flicker, then another, then complete and utter darkness. It was just after dinner on a Tuesday. Television snapped off mid-sentence, kitchen lights vanished, plunging homes into an unfamiliar blackness. The hum of refrigerators ceased. Children, initially excited, soon grew quiet. The sudden silence, broken only by confused murmurs, was unsettling. Outside, the streetlights were gone. Stars, usually hidden, appeared with startling clarity. Car headlights occasionally sliced through the darkness. Phones quickly showed no service. The immediate concern for many was light. Candles, often decorative, were suddenly essential. Their flickering flames cast dancing shadows, creating an almost medieval atmosphere. The sun rose on a changed world. Without the alarm clock's blare, people woke disoriented. The house was cold. The coffee maker was useless. The morning news, usually a cacophony from the television, was replaced by an eerie quiet. Stepping outside, neighbors were already emerging, their faces etched with curiosity and concern. "Is your power out too?" became the standard greeting. The shared experience created an instant, albeit uneasy bond. Information was scarce. Cell phone towers were clearly down. The internet remained a black hole. Whispers and rumors started to circulate. A transformer blew, a storm far away, a major grid failure. Those with battery-operated radios became crucial information hubs. Small groups gathered around crackling AM frequencies, straining to hear news updates. Reports were often vague, speaking of a widespread outage affecting a large region. There was no estimated time for restoration. This news, or lack thereof, sent a ripple of unease through the neighborhood. The initial novelty of the situation was rapidly wearing off. People realized this might not be a quick fix. The focus shifted from simple inconvenience to the dawning understanding of a potentially prolonged disruption to normal life. Essential services, beyond just power, were now in question. By the morning of day 2, the water situation had become a primary concern for many. For those reliant on municipal systems powered by electricity, taps began to run dry or produce only a trickle. The flushing of toilets became a carefully considered act. The thought of days without running water for drinking, cooking, and basic hygiene was deeply unsettling. People with stored water, perhaps a few emergency jugs or a rain barrel, suddenly possessed a valuable commodity. Conversations turned to alternative water sources, creeks, ponds, or even swimming pools, though the safety of such sources was a major question. The lack of refrigeration was also taking its toll. Food in freezers was beginning to thaw. Milk, meat, and other perishables were at risk. Some neighbors with gas grills organized impromptu cook-offs, trying to use up thawing food before it spoiled. This created small pockets of community, a shared purpose in salvaging what they could. It was an early form of resource management, driven by necessity. The smell of barbecue smoke, usually a sign of celebration, now carried a hint of urgency. As the outage stretched into its third and fourth days, the initial resilience for some began to wear thin. Food supplies were becoming a serious issue. Non-perishables were being carefully rationed. For families with young children or those with special dietary needs, the stress was immense. The novelty of canned beans and crackers quickly faded. The search for food became more organized, with some venturing further afield, hoping to find open stores in unaffected areas, often a fruitless journey. Gas station pumps remained inoperable, stranding vehicles and limiting travel options significantly. The lack of fuel impacted more than just transportation. Generators, for those fortunate enough to own one, were a lifeline, powering refrigerators or medical equipment. But they were noisy, and their fuel was a finite resource. The constant drone of a neighbor's generator could be both a comfort and a source of irritation, a reminder of the haves and have-nots in this new, powerless reality. Tensions began to surface. Disputes over noise or the perceived hoarding of resources like gasoline started to bubble up in isolated incidents, testing the earlier sense of community spirit. Information remained a trickle. By the midpoint of the week, hygiene had become a significant and uncomfortable challenge. Without running water, flushing toilets was a luxury of the past for most. Makeshift latrines were being dug in backyards, a primitive solution that brought its own set of concerns regarding sanitation and smell. Hand washing, crucial for preventing illness, became a difficult task involving carefully rationed water and soap, if available. The lack of showers meant everyone felt grimy and uncomfortable. This constant state of uncleanliness contributed to the general decline in morale, and added another layer of stress to daily life. Wet wipes, if people had them, were hoarded and used sparingly. Sponge baths with a small basin of water were the best most could manage. Laundry was out of the question and people wore the same clothes for days. The smell of unwashed bodies and accumulating waste began to permeate the air in some areas, a stark reminder of the breakdown of modern sanitation systems. Concerns about the spread of germs and potential illness grew, especially with limited access to medical help if someone did fall sick. The collective impact of poor hygiene was noticeable. People were more reluctant to gather closely. As days turned into a week and resources dwindled, security became an increasing concern for many residents. The prolonged darkness of night, once a novelty, now felt menacing. Unfamiliar sounds in the pitch-black streets could spark anxiety. Doors were locked more carefully and windows secured. Some neighborhoods began to discuss forming informal watch groups. Residents took turns patrolling, armed with flashlights and makeshift weapons. The idea was to create a visible presence to show that the community was looking out for itself. Despite the mounting challenges, the week without power also brought out remarkable instances of community spirit and cooperation. In many neighborhoods, the shared adversity fostered a sense of solidarity. People who had previously only exchanged polite nods found themselves actively helping one another. Those with specific skills or resources stepped up. A retired nurse might offer basic medical advice. Someone with a well-stocked pantry might share canned goods with a family running low. A neighbor with a working gas grill became the block's communal chef for an evening. These acts of kindness, big and small, were lifelines. They provided not only practical assistance but also a much-needed morale boost. Knowing that you weren't alone in the struggle made the hardship more bearable. Children, too, found ways to contribute, perhaps by entertaining younger kids or helping to carry water. Block parties, born out of the necessity to cook thawing food, became impromptu support groups where information was exchanged and anxieties were aired. These gatherings, lit by candles and flashlights, created a sense of camaraderie that transcended the darkness. However, the narrative of universal cooperation was not always the reality as the week wore on. As resources like food, water, and fuel became critically scarce, the inherent stresses of the situation began to fray the edges of community cohesion in some instances. Not everyone reacted with altruism. Fear and desperation can drive people to prioritize their own family's survival above all else, sometimes leading to selfishness or conflict. The every man for himself mentality could surface, particularly when the hope for a quick resolution faded entirely. Disputes over remaining resources became more common. An accusation of someone hoarding water or using too much fuel for a generator that only benefited their own household could quickly escalate into heated arguments. The lack of clear leadership or established rules for resource distribution in such an unprecedented crisis left a void. Established social norms weakened under the prolonged pressure. While some neighborhoods managed to implement fair sharing systems, others saw a breakdown in cooperation, with suspicion and resentment replacing the initial goodwill. The psychological toll of deprivation also played a significant role. Chronic hunger, thirst, and lack of sleep can make anyone irritable and less patient. Minor annoyances that would be brushed off in normal times could become major points of contention. When the power finally flickered back on, often as unceremoniously as it had departed, the relief was immense, almost palpable. Lights blazed, refrigerators hummed back to life, and the silence was broken by the sounds of a returning world. Yet, the neighborhood was not quite the same. The visual landscape bore the marks of the ordeal: piles of spoiled food awaiting collection, makeshift latrines to be filled, and yards perhaps a little more unkempt. More profoundly, the social landscape had been altered. Neighbors knew each other in ways they hadn't before, for better or worse. The week without power forced a return to basics, stripping away the conveniences of modern life and revealing deep dependencies. It taught harsh lessons about preparedness, or the lack thereof. Many vowed to be better equipped for future emergencies, stocking up on water, non-perishable food, batteries, and perhaps even investing in a generator or solar charger. The experience highlighted the vulnerability of complex, interconnected systems and the speed with which normal life can unravel. It was a stark reminder not to take essential services for granted. Community dynamics underwent a significant shift. Some bonds forged in shared hardship and mutual aid remained strong,